Hi, so today we're going to be talking about the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights was ratified on December 15th of 1791. And basically, the purpose of the Bill of Rights was to ensure certain freedoms and rights of the citizens in America. So it puts a limit on what the government can do and what it can control. And the reason that this is so important is because when it was written, this was right after the American Revolution, and so basically the founding fathers of America wanted to make sure that the government they were creating wouldn't become tyrannical and oppressive like they felt the English government was that they just separated themselves from. Okay, so this is really important to know for us as American citizens what our rights are. So this is just the first 10 out of 27 amendments to the Constitution. And I don't have a physical copy to show you what to highlight and what to annotate, but I'm going to give you, I'm going to kind of tell you what you should be highlighting and what you should be writing in the margins. Okay, so we're going to start with the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So the First Amendment is debatably the most important amendment in the Bill of Rights. So what this is saying is that you have the right to your freedom of religion. You can have whatever religion. You can practice whatever religion. You have the freedom of speech, so you can pretty much say whatever you want. Now, that doesn't mean that you can make threats, but if you if you feel really positively about the government and about the president, you have the right to say that. And if you feel really negatively about the government and the president or whatever, you can express that. And like I said, you can't make threats, because that is inciting violence, and so you can't do that, but you do have the freedom of speech in most regards. Freedom of press, press is like the media, so newspapers, TV stations, anything like that, that's all the press. So the government can't put restrictions on what the media can and can't say, because that is their freedom of speech, okay? The freedom of assembly is, to assemble is to get together. So the freedom of assembly is people are allowed to protest. They're allowed to, get together to kind of just do whatever. If freedom of assembly could be considered under freedom of religion, people getting together at their local church or mosque or place of worship. That would be assembly. And like I said, protesting, that could be freedom of assembly as well. And the same thing goes for protesting as it does with freedom of speech, where you can get together and you can express your opinions, but you can't get violent. So you can't flip cars and burn things and riot and stuff like that. That's not, you don't have any legal standing for that in the law. Alright, you have the ability to ask the government to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So you have the ability to ask the government to change things, or to have, or to, kind of sue the government for certain things. So, well, not certain things. You can pretty much sue the government for anything. You probably won't win, but you have the ability to do that without it being held against you. Alright, so Amendment 2. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So this is super easy. The Second Amendment is about owning guns. So over the years, there have been more limitations put on how you are able to buy guns, or what you can do with them. But the bottom line is that you can own them. You can have them. Okay, so Amendment 3, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a matter to be prescribed by law. So the reason that this is important is because during the American Revolution, England would send over troops, and basically they could just go knock on someone's door and be like, "Hey, I'm sleeping here tonight, so like y'all gotta get out," or like, "You have to sleep on the floor." I'm like, "I'm taking your bed," so you know, like you can't do that. Like that doesn't really apply as much today as it did back then, but yeah. So when it says to be quartered in any house, that means like your quarters like is your house. So Amendment 4, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So this is your right to private property. Like, you can't just randomly be searched. You can't have cops knock on your door and say, like, "I want to come in and like search your stuff." Like, in order to do that, you would have to go to a judge and go through like a legal process of getting a warrant. And if you get a warrant, like, then your house can be searched, your car can be searched, whatever. And usually that's only done like if you're being convicted of a crime, or if you have, or if they have a reason to think that something you may have could 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 help convict someone of a crime. So they're trying to gain evidence, okay? But yeah, so they can't search or take your property without a good reason. All right, Amendment 5. So this one's a little bit complicated, so we're going to break it down like piece by piece. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or an indictment, and an indictment is a formal charge or accusation, of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or in public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So this is a lot of things packed into one amendment, but essentially it's saying that you can't be tried twice for a crime. So when you are being tried, you either are acquitted or you're convicted. So if you're convicted, that means that you went through the trial and it was decided that you were guilty. But if you were acquitted, that means that you were not guilty. So if you were tried for murder and you were acquitted, and the jury, the judge, whoever said that you're not guilty, you cannot be brought back to court unless there is a real reason to do that. So if there is like new evidence that could change the decision of your trial, then you can get brought back, but you just can't get brought back to be tried again. Okay? So it says, when it says shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, this means that you don't have to answer questions if you feel like it's going to incriminate you. So, like when I was little, I would ask my dad questions, and then sometimes he'd be like, "I plead the fifth." Like if you've ever heard someone say, "I plead the fifth," that's what they're referring to. They're referring to the Fifth Amendment. And so you must be given a fair trial and convicted. And if you're convicted, rights can be taken away, but only if you're convicted. Like you, yeah, so, and it says, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So if you have a house and the government wants to build a highway, and they think that that highway is necessary for whatever reason, they can try to like build the highway there, but they have to give you money essentially, for you to they have to compensate you for you to move. Okay, so yeah. All right. All right. Amendment 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and be given information of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So, it says a speedy and public trial. They can't just hold you in jail for years while you wait for your trial. Like, that's not fair. They can't just hold you like that. So it has to be done in a reasonable amount of time, and it has to be public. And you have the right to know what your crime is. So they can't bring you to trial and not tell you what you're being tried for. They have to, like, always tell you. And if you... Okay. An example of this is, like, Ted Bundy was a serial killer in the 70s, and he was being tried for murder, obviously. Murder and kidnapping and whatever. And so when they found that other people that could possibly have been his victims, like, they would add that on to his trial, but they had to make him aware of that when they were going through the process. You can't just, like, tack on crimes and then, like, not tell the person being tried. Okay? So you have the right to a lawyer. So if you don't have a lawyer, one will be appointed to you. That's what they say when, like, if you can't afford a lawyer, like, you're going to be given one. Given one by, like, the government. So when witnesses are brought against you, you can speak to them face to face. You can question them, and you can kind of, like, you have the right to, like, ask them questions on trial. So if you have the judge and then you have the witness, you can, like, question them in front of the whole court, in front of the whole jury. So that can, like, kind of sway it in your favor. Okay, Amendment 7. It's in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise reexamined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. So this is just the right to a jury. Okay? So if you're being convicted of a crime, you have the right to a jury, meaning it's a group of people who get together, they listen to the whole case, and then at the end they get together and vote on if they think that you're guilty and not guilty, and then that's how you are acquitted or convicted. However, if you choose to do this, most people don't, but they can decide to bypass the jury and just have the judge decide whether or not they're guilty. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So, bail is the money paid so that you can go home while you wait for your trial. Excessive fines imposed. So, if you go to the gas station and you steal a candy bar, like, they can't try to charge you, like, thousands of dollars for stealing a candy bar, because that doesn't make sense. That's excessive, okay? Cruel and unusual punishment is basically like torture or like solitary confinement, things like that. You can be put in jail for life, or you can be given the death penalty, which really isn't common, but it's possible. But it's done in a way that isn't considered cruel. So, for example, back in the late 1600s, the Salem witch trials was an example of like cruel and unusual punishment. So, what happened was like mostly women, but there were some men too that were if they were if someone said that they were a witch, they could be stoned or hung or tortured or whatever. But you can't do that. Like that's against your human rights. So that's what like cruel and unusual punishment is. Amendment 9. The enumeration of in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So what this means is that just because it's not specifically listed in the Constitution doesn't mean that you have that right. Like if you want to build a snowman, like you can do that. Just because like it's not stated in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights just because there's not like it's specifically saying like you can do this, like within reason, like you have rights that aren't listed in the Constitution. Like this amendment kind of leaves it more open-ended. So this isn't like the end-all be-all of your rights. These are just the most basic ones that the Founding Fathers wanted to make sure were expressly stated. Okay, and then Amendment 10. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So this is like kind of what created like concurrent powers. So the federal government has certain powers, but the powers that they don't have are given to the states or to the people. Okay, so this is what's outlining that states have rights. Alright, so these are just the first 10 amendments, but there are 17 more. There's 27 amendments in total right now. In the future, there will probably be some more added on, but it kind of takes a lot to have an amendment added. So I want you to keep this paper with you while you're playing the game on iCivics that there's a link to in the lesson plan. I played it, and it was pretty fun. Like, it should only take you about, like, 30 minutes. But make sure when you click on the link to only play the Bill of Rights edition. It's shorter, and, like, we didn't get to the rest of the amendments yet, so only play the Bill of Rights one. But, yeah, I hope you learned a lot from this video, and, yeah, if you have any questions, like, you can post it on the Google Classroom or send me an email. But, yeah, I hope you have a good day and y'all are all safe out there. So, thanks. Bye.